1 year ago today, I made the decision to completely change how I film, not just in the studio, but just my everyday life. I swapped, which at the time was a super powerful but bulky S5 Mark II for the smaller, compact, and maybe even less powerful Lumix S9. And to be honest, I didn't expect this shift in camera to really reshape how I feel and how I act as a filmmaker inside my personal work and then also in my professional work as well. Now, in order for me to answer the question of why I traded down almost and downgraded essentially a great camera to, just a technically speaking inferior camera, I kind of have to explain my goals and what I wanted first. So when I initially bought the S9, I was not looking for better specs or anything like that, really. I was looking for a small, sleek, compact, lightweight camera that I could wear around my neck and it virtually not stop anything I'm doing. Now, see, I had already owned the S5 Mark II for some time and the quality was amazing. The IBIS was just top tier, something I'd never experienced with any other camera, to be honest. But I just found it to be too big. I would purposely not go out with it because it was so big. I would refrain from bringing it with me anywhere because I knew if I bring this camera with me, I'm just going to have to be holding it down the entire time. I'm going to be worried about dropping it or messing it up. It's also just kind of an intimidating camera. It's not the kind of camera you want to bring to like a public space or when you're out and about trying to just record your daily life. It's kind of a beefier camera that I think does scream a little bit more into people than, the S9 does, which is a lot more tiny, a little more friendly, more compact, especially when you take out the cage and everything. It's way more subtle, And to a weird extent, I found myself with the S5 Mark II missing things. I found myself missing events. I found myself missing memories even because I would not bring it. I would purposely not bring it out. Just for the sake of not trying to be that guy with a big cinema camera at a birthday party, Now, the S9 just completely changed that. It's compact, it's small, it's lightweight, and honestly, the camera kind of feels approachable. It doesn't feel intimidating. It also takes the exact same batteries as the S5 Mark II, so pretty much any of the batteries that I've already owned for a long time will work with this camera, so it's not like I have to completely change the lifestyle. I'm not jumping brands like to Sony or something and having to rebuy all my accessories. Pretty much all my accessories, other than like a cage, will still work just fine. And that's the other thing, because the S5 Mark II was such a larger camera, I don't know if it just uses up more power, but these batteries tended to last far longer in the S9 than they ever did in the S5 Mark II. They just lasted pretty much, the entire day. I could take my camera out, record small clips here and there, and still have almost half battery by the time I got home. The S9 definitely took advantage of the same batteries. Now, when I picked up the S9, I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was a limited camera, and I knew there was some things that were just not going to be there. For example, no viewfinder or anything like that. I think some people were expecting like a rangefinder when this was initially pitched and kind of rumored, but no viewfinder to just the screen. It sucks, but it's not a deal breaker for me, to be honest. No headphone monitoring port. Sure, that's annoying, but if I'm honest, if you need a headphone monitoring port, this probably isn't the camera for you. This is definitely more of an EDC daily vlog style camera. I think if you're using headphones and monitoring audio, there's probably better cameras that can give you a better experience and then also kind of can be rigged out better. That was the big issue I found with this camera. Is a lot of people expected this camera to be everything the S5 Mark II was, but smaller. But realistically, it pretty much is everything the S5 Mark II is as far as quality goes. As far as features go, they obviously had to cut some things out to fit the size and the price and everything. And I think they cut out features that I felt were understandable. I just didn't find any of the missing features, honest, to be a deal breaker, if I'm honest. I think I would have liked better screen, like just a slightly either larger or more articulated screen. I think the screen in the S1 Mark II really would have done, good here, but obviously that probably wasn't out yet at the time. Now, one of the huge questions I found myself asking when I first picked up the S9 was, can this camera compete? Can this camera hold its own with my S5 Mark II? Because that was my thing, is I wanted this camera to be a camera that could complement the S5 Mark II. At the time, my S5 Mark II was more of a studio indoors camera. Like I said, I didn't really take it anywhere. And I wanted a camera that could be more my outdoorsy, taking everywhere with me camera, and to be able to match that footage perfectly, color-wise, quality-wise, everything. And that was my big thing, was can this camera stand up? Like, it's going to look like I obviously downgraded when, in between shots. That was my big concern. And in all honesty, with vlog and putting LUTs on, I could never even tell the difference between the footage. I would put both footage from both cameras into my editor, and by the time I put the LUTs and everything in it and I made my own custom edits, I felt like you couldn't even tell the difference. The biggest difference to me was almost always that I use a smaller, wider lens on the S9, and on the S5 Mark II, I usually use bigger or medium lenses just because I felt like this camera being so small needed smaller lenses. So that was the bigger difference, honestly, not even really color or image quality. And very quickly, the S9 became my everyday camera. It came with me everywhere. It literally just made sense. It was not that much bigger than like a phone, and it could take cinema quality video and also take great photos too. I do mainly do more videos than photos at this point, but it still is no slouch for photos either. And that's something I really don't stress with this. I never once to this day felt that the S9's quality was lacking or subpar, or if I only had this one feature. Like, to me, the biggest feature that this camera brought and that I really needed was the image stabilization that pretty much all the Lumix cameras have, and open gate. The fact that this camera, this tiny little camera, can do open gate, but pretty much any Sony camera that's like double the cost of this can't, kind of boggles my mind. I don't know why everyone's not like screaming from the rooftops these cameras need open gate. And it's not like they can't. There's plenty of cameras that can totally shoot and be made to run open gate, even if the base software doesn't start with it. I really don't know. I love this camera, and one of the biggest reasons for purchasing it was purely open gate. I think open gate is easily one of the most important features for me, and at this point, I'm not buying a camera that doesn't have it. The way I use my footage for vertical and horizontal, I need it. I absolutely need open gate, and it's not something I'm willing to give up anytime soon. And if this tiny little vlogger camera, as everyone likes to call it, can do it, I'm not sure why any of these other brands don't. Everything is great. The IBIS is perfect. I don't even really use the enhanced IBIS stuff. I just pretty much use the base settings and it works totally fine. The only thing I will give it is the ergonomics of this camera are just horrible. Like, they're not good. I think I look back at the Nikon ZF, and I had that camera for a few months, and I really liked that camera. I thought the camera is beautiful and just physically one of the best, most exciting cameras to just hold and interact with. The Nikon ZF is gorgeous. This camera obviously doesn't really have that same appeal to it, but it definitely looks good. It's not an ugly camera by any means, but I do feel like the fact that I've put a cage on here, and there's a bunch of different cages that have a better grip, makes handling it way easier, especially because if you have a larger lens, you can like kind of, cup the lens and hold it pause, but you can, move the camera around. Because I usually use smaller lenses on this, I don't really have like another grabbing point on the camera. I usually just, if I need to use two hands, I just do this. But the lack of a really good grip on the camera sucks. But I did get used to it. I do prefer the grip if I can, but if you're just trying to be as streamlined as possible, thumb rest here actually does help out a good amount, to be honest with you. It's not as bad as probably like the Sigma BF is. I do wish they would have maybe just done something with a grip. I don't know. Now, what I want to talk about isn't necessarily the technical stuff with this camera. The biggest thing for me and the biggest change I found was honestly more like psychological. I found myself shooting way more with this camera. I found myself going outside way more with this camera. Capturing moments that I feel like I honestly would have skipped if I just didn't have the S9. I probably wouldn't have brought my bigger Lumix camera, and I probably would have maybe used my phone. But in my eyes also, I feel like when you start using your phone, especially in like group events, pretty much everyone else is also shooting with their phone. So it's like we're all just shooting with our iPhones. If I really wanted this footage, I could probably just get it from someone else. No reason for me to take up space on my phone to shoot the exact same footage that's going to look the exact same as someone else's. Having the S9, which was giving me cinema quality in a smaller package and a more approachable package, just made me shoot more. It made me go out more. It made me want to document more. And over time, I found myself drifting away from the S5 Mark II. Because it was bigger and just kind of more clunky, I found myself using the S9 even for more studio stuff, just because I could just set it up. And I don't really rig out my cameras. At most, I use a mic and maybe a light. So I'm not rigging them out. And I move and shoot in different locations pretty much every time. So I'm not having like a stationary setup to, dock the camera. And the S5 Mark II just kind of collected dust over time. Eventually, I did sell it, and I no longer have that camera. And to be honest, I'm not trying to glaze the S9. I love this camera. I think it's a great camera. I think it's a very underrated camera for the amount of hate and flack that it got when it first came out. But it's not perfect. And it's kind of this weird situation I'm at now. About 6 months now, while I've not had the S5 Mark II and just had the S9, I've been able to shoot just fine. I really haven't ran or hit a wall in any way at all. Like, in my eyes, this was kind of funny to call this an endgame camera, because I feel like most people wouldn't even consider it like in that realm. But there's just not really any of other features I needed up until now. The biggest one is I've been starting to do more podcast style recordings where they're longer, hour and a half plus, 2 hour plus recordings. And the S9 just can't handle that consistently. Sometimes it does make it over 2.5 hours just fine. Sometimes it overheats after an hour and a half. It definitely has a give and take. It can definitely record for about a full hour just fine, but anything longer than that, you're kind of just risking it, So that's kind of made me reconsider going back to having a more mainline camera. Just because I'm doing work now that I wasn't doing before, it's changed the way I see things a little bit. And now that the S1 Mark II is out, that's kind of caught my attention. And I do really think that camera could fill in the gap a little bit more. Obviously, it's still going to be a bigger, bulkier camera, but I think that has a lot of features that I really like. And I think some of the external recording stuff would be great for what I'm doing too. So I'm just really excited about the S1 Mark II. I think that might be my S5 Mark II kind of replacement. But the S9 is just, I have almost no problems with the camera. At the end of the day, I think the best camera for you is the one that makes you shoot more and is the one that you are the happiest while shooting. And for me, that's just been the S9. It didn't just check specs off on a spec sheet for me. It made creating content fun again. After a year of having this camera, would I say it's worth it? Of course, definitely. This camera is by no means the perfect camera. It is definitely a very specific kind of camera. For me, the way I shoot, the way I like to record, this just fits my daily life perfectly. I think as long as you know what this camera is and what it isn't, it can punch well above its weight class and deliver, in my opinion, some of the best footage I've seen on a sub $2,000 camera. It's honestly kind of shocking the quality and features that are in this camera that are absent from $3,000 plus cameras. With that said, thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it. If you could drop a sub, a like, any of that stuff really does help me out. I'm kind of just creating content as I go right now. It's what I'm passionate about on this channel. So if you like what I'm doing, if you want to see more camera stuff, more tech stuff, please let me know. And appreciate it. Have a good one.